Today on Law Weekly, we look at contract formation in Nigeria using information technology. We speak to Malechi Okafor, a supervising attorney at Tokunbo Rimobi LP, and the age of globalization. Also, the campaigns have begun ahead of the 2019 elections, but how can we ensure Nigeria gets a seat at the league table of leading nations? We have the views of a senior lawyer. We also have an update on the National Crime and Incidents Database connecting all parts of the country at a workshop in Abuja, plus our recap of the top trending stories in the courtrooms. That's the lineup on this episode of the program. I'm Millicent Walker. Information technology contracts are subject to the same statutes and principles of common law as any other lawful contract. However, there are several unique features of information technology contracts. Our guest tells us more.
The concept of information technology is what we know as the concept of information technology. I mean, the world, like I say, is already a global village. So now, as it stands, everybody I can get in touch with you without having to see you face to face. Now that's the advent of the internet age and then information technology. Now that has given birth to transactions happening across borders and transactions happening with people that do not see each other. And that is the concept of e-commerce. You could buy a boat off someone in the Himalayas when he puts it on a particular platform and then transactions. So that's the concept of e-commerce, ability to trade, buy and sell, enter contracts, and then to have agreements whilst parties don't see each other over the internet.
Would you say that cyber law has affected transactions, e-commerce globally and also in Nigeria?
Generally, the advent of information technology brought about the fact that people across various jurisdictions can enter contracts with each other, and then the questions now are, the elements of a valid contract. Now, how are these elements of a valid contract now imputed into this transaction? So over the years, it has happened not once, it has happened not twice. I mean, it's now common parlance now for people to get into transactions and agreements with people they have not even seen sometimes, and all these are done online. So there's been various regulations and various laws from different countries, cross-border, and even in Nigeria. Particularly in Nigeria in 2015, we had the cybercrime law. It was a Cybercrime Act which was passed, and then so for Nigeria, that's how we've attempted to catch up with everything. I mean, Section 17 of that same act gave birth to the fact that you can actually sign using electronic signatures, and that's the first advent of use of electronic law that clearly stipulates that you can use electronic signatures in signing documents and doing anything, and it will still have the same backing as ink signatures would have.
With the ease of business spreading like wildfire in Nigeria, and of course, globally, incorporating e-commerce and ways of doing business, entering into contracts online, do you think there will be legal challenges that would arise with our legal system here?
The fact is, unlike the run of the normal contract, I mean, in the normal contract, you say there's offer, there's acceptance, and there's consideration. However, in a cyber contract, usually offer is when you work. Offer is on a good day. In a normal contract, is when the person puts up his goods in a show glass, and then you see it, and then but in a cyber transaction, offer happens when you make an offer. So you go online, which is you see what you want to get. That's an invitation to treat, and then you click. Offer has been made. And acceptance is when the person gets the goods. Now, usually what happens at this point, and then consideration, of course, is the normal consideration of when payment is made. But usually what happens now is, there are issues where there's the issuing bank and the acquiring bank, and then who actually is responsible in the event that you've made an online payment. However, by virtue of the guidelines of operations, the CBN created the guidelines in 2016, guidelines on operation of electronic payment channel in Nigeria. And the guideline was to the effect that in the event that you make payment and you are unable to, the payment has not been effected, it's the responsibility of the issuing bank, which is your own bank. You make complaint and to ensure that everything on the transaction is sorted.
So we know the traditional ways of entering into a contract and how a contract must be binding, the offer and acceptance, and the consideration. And then, compare that to going online and then there is a contract interpreting the offer, the acceptance, and the consideration. How do you think the judiciary will be able to interpret assent of a particular party entering into a contract online?
Yeah, the argument is, and then the Evidence Act too has also accepted electronic use of electronic evidence. Section 84 of the Evidence Act goes on to say how you would have to establish that it was an electronic document, and it was. So in all, you marry the provisions of the Cybercrime Act and then the provisions of the Evidence Act. It's almost impossible not to.
Let's look at Nigeria. What steps do you think that the government is taking to ensure that e-commerce, transactions online work?
Now, truth be told, the Nigerian government has taken a massive step in ensuring that we are doing the right things and we're in the right direction when it comes to cybercrime and information technology law. In 2015, they passed the Cybercrime Act, and then you'll be surprised, you'll be shocked to realize how rich the Cybercrime Act is. But like every other problem that we always have in the country, it's a problem of implementation. Now, it's how we really try to implement and execute the provisions of the said law. The Cybercrime Act goes on to state a lot of things. You wouldn't believe that there's a law against child pornography in Nigeria and that there's a punishment for child pornography. There was some time in the past recently, there was a video that was circulating of, now to even have that video on your phone or to even circulate it or post it up on social media or Facebook is a criminal offense. Punishable with by a fine of 20 million or 10, not less than 10 years imprisonment. So cyberbullying is now an offense in Nigeria. It's now a crime actually in Nigeria. I keep saying, and I've said it before, that Nigeria has a litany of laws that are not implemented and that are not enforced. We can only hope that the issue of cybercrime and the Cybercrime Act does not go and does not join the litany of laws that have not been enforced.